Okay, so let's dive into this one.
Right.
This is
Oh, it's heavy.
yeah, it's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine for a second
Mm-hmm.
a world without Amber Alerts, right?
Yeah.
A time when
Oh, wow.
the evening news
Yeah.
wasn't just dominated by missing children.
Mm-hmm.
For many of you listening
Yeah.
between 45 and 60
Right.
in our
You might remember that time.
wheelhouse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now picture this. 1988, Japan,
Huh.
seemingly peaceful suburbs,
Mm-hmm.
and a 17-year-old girl
Okay.
named Junko Furuta vanishes.
All right.
This isn't just a missing persons case. This
Mhm.
is a deep dive into 40 days
Oh, wow.
of just unimaginable cruelty,
Okay.
a justice system grappling with its own limitations,
Mm-hmm.
and the disturbing reality of repeat offenders.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah. So,
It's a tough one.
what's so striking about Junko's story is the sheer contrast between the life that she led
Yeah.
and the horror that she was subjected to. So, you think about it. Dedicated student, hardworking, saving for a trip with friends, running away, just didn't fit.
Right.
And that phone call home, orchestrated by her captors.
Yeah.
Chilling.
Yeah.
It speaks to a calculated cruelty right from the start.
It's like a parent's worst nightmare.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
That feeling of knowing something is terribly wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but not having the evidence
Right.
to act.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
sadly, as we kind of delve deeper,
Mm-hmm.
that nightmare
Yeah.
becomes all too real.
The details of Junko's captivity are difficult to even discuss.
Yeah.
But to understand the magnitude of this case,
Mhm.
we need to understand the systematic torture that she endured.
Right.
I mean, we're talking forced starvation,
Sure.
being made to eat cockroaches,
Ugh.
sexual assault, so horrific they're difficult to even put into words. It's a level of calculated cruelty that's almost impossible to comprehend.
And to think that the individuals responsible were teenagers themselves.
I know.
Hiroshi Miyano, 18, Joe
Mhm.
Ogura, 17,
Okay.
Yasushi Watanabe, 16,
hmm
and Nobuharu Minato,
Yeah.
only 15.
It adds a whole other layer of complexity to
Yeah.
this tragedy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you factor in Hiroshi Miyano's
Right.
potential ties to the Yakuza,
Mm-hmm.
the case takes on even like a darker dimension.
Yeah.
The involvement of organized crime suggests a level of premeditation,
Right.
a network of power and intimidation
Mhm.
that would have been nearly impossible
Yeah.
for a young girl like Junko to escape.
It raises the question, were there any chances to intervene?
Right.
We know that a concerned individual
Yeah.
reported suspicious activity
Mm-hmm.
at the house where Junko was held,
Uh-huh.
but Nobuharu's parents,
Right.
likely out of misguided loyalty or perhaps denial,
Right.
claimed Junko was his girlfriend,
Oh my gosh.
effectively shutting down the investigation.
Wow. This incident is pivotal because it highlights the complex role of family and accountability.
Yeah.
How do we reconcile the instinct to protect our children
Right.
with the moral imperative to report potential harm?
Right.
In this case, the parents' intervention,
Yeah.
whether intentional or not,
Right.
directly contributed to Junko's prolonged suffering.
It's a truly disturbing thought,
It is.
and one that unfortunately echoes in many similar cases.
Yeah, it does.
But ultimately, the truth did come out.
It did.
And it was Hiroshi himself who inadvertently led
Mm.
authorities to Junko.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes, and the irony here is striking.
Yeah.
While being questioned for an unrelated crime,
Mm-hmm.
Hiroshi panicked,
Yeah.
mistakenly believing he was going to be charged with Junko's murder.
Wow.
His confession,
Right.
a desperate attempt to control the situation, backfired completely,
Wow.
leading police to her body encased in concrete in a landfill.
That discovery and the subsequent details of the case that emerged
Right.
sparked nationwide outrage.
Sure.
The brutality of the crime,
Mm-hmm.
coupled with what many considered shockingly lenient sentences
Right.
for the perpetrators,
Yeah.
ignited a debate
I bet.
about the Japanese justice system's
Sure.
approach to juvenile offenders.
This is where the case transcends the individual tragedy and
Right.
becomes a societal reflection.
Mm.
To understand the public outcry, we need to understand the legal context.
Okay.
In Japan, at the time,
Mm.
there was and continues to be a strong emphasis on rehabilitation,
Right.
particularly for minors.
Yeah.
The sentences ranging from 3 to 20 years,
Mm.
even for a crime as horrific as this,
Right.
we're seen as consistent with that philosophy.
But for many,
Yeah.
the sentences felt like a profound miscarriage of justice.
Uh-huh.
It fueled public skepticism
Yeah.
about whether rehabilitation could truly be achieved,
Right.
in such extreme cases,
It's a valid concern.
and one that's central to understand the complexities of this case.
Right.
The system, intended to offer a second chance,
Mm-hmm.
appeared to many to have failed to adequately address the severity of the crime
Yeah.
and the potential for future harm.
Right.
And this tension between rehabilitation and public safety
Mm-hmm.
is something we'll explore further
Okay.
as we delve into the aftermath of this tragedy.
All right. It's hard to imagine the media storm
Right.
surrounding this case.
Mm-hmm.
This was, remember, before the internet.
Yeah.
For 247 news cycles.
Yeah.
Yet Junko's story dominated headlines, sparked protests, ignited a nationwide debate
Sure.
about juvenile crime,
Right.
and the perceived leniency of the justice system.
The media coverage was indeed intense, and a pivotal moment occurred when a magazine editor made the controversial decision to leak the perpetrators' identities.
Wow.
His justification, and I quote this, "Beasts don't have human rights."
Really encapsulates the raw anger and thirst for retribution that many in Japan felt.
It's a chilling statement,
It is.
and one that reflects a fundamental conflict at the heart of this case.
Right.
On one hand, you have the legal principle of protecting minors, even those who commit horrific acts. And on the other, you have the visceral public outcry for justice.
Sure.
A demand that these individuals be held accountable regardless of their age.
It's a moral dilemma with no easy answers.
Right.
And it forces us to confront some uncomfortable questions about the nature of justice itself. Is it about punishment, rehabilitation, or finding some balance between the two?
Right.
Japan's emphasis on rehabilitation, particularly for young offenders, is rooted in a cultural belief in second chances, in the possibility of redemption.
But as we've seen, that belief can be severely tested when confronted with the stark reality of a crime as brutal as this. The light sentences, coupled with the perpetrators reoffending, really fueled public skepticism about the effectiveness of rehabilitation in such extreme cases.
Exactly, and it raises a crucial point.
Yeah.
Can rehabilitation truly work when the underlying motivations for the crime are so deeply disturbing?
Right.
In Junko's case, the torture wasn't random. It was systematic, prolonged, and seemingly driven by a desire to inflict pain for its own sake.
It's a level of cruelty that's hard to fathom, and it makes you wonder about the psychological factors at play.
Right.
What leads a group of teenagers down such a dark path?
Sure.
And how can a justice system focused on rehabilitation adequately address such deeply ingrained patterns of behavior?
These are questions that criminologists and psychologists continue to grapple with. It's clear that understanding the root causes of violent behavior, particularly in young offenders, is essential in developing effective rehabilitation strategies.
Okay.
But it's equally clear that in some cases, rehabilitation may not be possible, and the focus needs to shift to protecting society from further harm.
And then there's the financial aspect of the case.
Okay.
The perpetrators were ordered to pay 50 million yen in damages to Junko's family.
Right.
Now, that's a significant sum.
Yeah.
But split 4 ways
and
adjusted for inflation, it feels almost insulting, considering the lifetime of pain that they inflicted.
You're right. The financial settlement, even if it had been fully paid, could never truly compensate for the immensity of the loss.
Yeah.
It highlights the limitations of our legal systems in quantifying suffering and providing meaningful closure to victims' families. In Junko's case, the monetary compensation, coupled with the lenient sentences, contributed to the widespread perception that justice hadn't been served.
And to add insult to injury, Nobuharu Minato's parents refused to pay his share of the damages.
Oh, wow.
Instead, using their money to help the other perpetrators with legal fees.
It's like they were doubling down on their denial, refusing to acknowledge their son's culpability, and further alienating Junko's family and the public.
It's a stark example of how personal biases and loyalties can completely cloud judgment, even in the face of overwhelming evidence. Their refusal to hold their son accountable only added to the sense of injustice surrounding the case.
Yeah.
It's a disturbing reminder that sometimes the greatest obstacle to justice isn't the legal system itself, but the human capacity for denial, manipulation, and a refusal to accept responsibility.
Totally.
But what makes this case even more unsettling is what happened after these individuals were released. 3 out of the 4 went on to commit further crimes.
Ugh, that's right.
Raising serious questions about the effectiveness of the rehabilitation efforts they were subjected to.
That's right. And this brings us to the concept of recidivism.
Okay.
The act of reoffending.
Right.
It's a complex issue with multiple contributing factors. While the brutality of the original crime can be a strong indicator, it's not the only one.
Right.
Psychological factors, social support systems, and the effectiveness of rehabilitation programs all play a role.
So in the case of these individuals, it seems like the system failed on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Not only were the initial sentences considered too lenient by many,
Right.
but whatever rehabilitation efforts were undertaken clearly didn't prevent them from causing further harm.
Exactly. And this failure raises that fundamental question again. What is the true purpose of our justice systems? Is it retribution, rehabilitation, or finding some difficult balance between the two?
It's a tough balance.
It is.
And Junko's case makes it clear that we don't always get it right.
We don't.
Let's take Joe Ogura, for example.
Okay.
He served a short sentence for his role in Junko's murder.
Right.
And was later imprisoned again for assault.
Oh, gosh.
And even Hiroshi Miyano, who served a longer sentence, ended up back in jail for financial fraud linked to organized crime.
These examples underscore the long-term consequences of violent crime.
Right.
It's not just about the initial act, but the ripple effect it has on individuals, families, and communities, the potential for reoffending, the ongoing trauma experienced by victims, the erosion of public trust in the justice system. These are all factors we must consider.
And then we come to Nobuharu Minato.
Right.
His case is perhaps the most disturbing of all.
Okay.
He was actually convicted of attempted murder.
Oh, wow.
After a violent attack.
Oh, geez.
Where he slashed a man's throat.
It's a chilling reminder that some individuals, despite exposure to the justice system, remain a danger to society.
Nobuharu Minato's later crime is especially difficult to process.
It is.
It forces us to ask, at what point does protecting society outweigh the potential for rehabilitation?
Right.
While we as a society tend to want to believe in second chances, there are instances where the risk of recidivism is simply too great.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
And one that likely brings little comfort to Junko's family.
Right.
Their decision to move away, to remain silent, speaks volumes about the enduring pain of their loss and their inability to find peace within a system that failed to protect their daughter and hold her killers fully accountable.
Their silence is indeed a powerful indictment of the system's shortcomings. It's a reminder that justice isn't just about legal proceedings and punishment. It's about providing support and healing for victims and their families, and creating a society where such atrocities are less likely to occur.
Absolutely.
So where does this leave us? What can we possibly learn from Junko Furuta's tragic story?
Her case is a stark reminder that we cannot be complacent.
Right.
We must constantly evaluate and refine our justice systems, ensuring they are equipped to handle the complexities of human behavior.
Right.
Balance the need for rehabilitation with public safety concerns, and provide genuine support for victims and their families.
It's also a call to personal action.
Absolutely.
We must be vigilant in our communities, speak out against injustice, and support organizations that advocate for victims' rights and work to prevent violence.
And perhaps most importantly, we must remember Junko Furuta. Her story, as horrific as it is, must not be forgotten. It serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the darkness that can exist within humanity, and a call to action to create a world where such tragedies are less likely to occur.
This deep dive has been emotionally challenging.
It has.
But incredibly important.
It is.
We encourage you to continue exploring Junko's story.
Yes.
Reflect on your own views about justice and rehabilitation. And consider what you can do to make a difference.
Absolutely.
Remember, even small acts of kindness, awareness, and advocacy can have a ripple effect.
Thank you for joining us on this difficult journey.
Yeah.
We hope this deep dive has provided you with new insights, sparked thoughtful conversations, and inspired you to be a force for positive change in the world.
You know, it's tough to grapple with the fact that after the unimaginable suffering they inflicted, 3 of Junko's killers would go on to commit more crimes.
Right.
It makes you question whether rehabilitation is even possible in cases as extreme as this.
It's a crucial question. And what's important to remember here is that recidivism, the act of reoffending, is a really multifaceted issue. While the brutality of the original crime is a significant factor. It's not the sole determinant. Psychological factors, social support systems, the effectiveness of rehabilitation programs, all of those play a role.
So in the case of these individuals, it seems like the system might have missed opportunities on multiple levels. Not only were the initial sentences perceived as too lenient by many, but the rehabilitation efforts, whatever they may have been, clearly weren't enough to prevent further harm.
And that brings us right back to that core question that we keep confronting. What is the ultimate purpose of our justice system? Is it about punishment? Rehabilitation? Or is it about finding that really complicated balance of both?
It's a balance that it's incredibly difficult to strike. And Junko's case tragically demonstrates that sometimes we don't get it right.
Sometimes we don't.
Take Joe Oger, for example. He served a relatively short sentence for his part in Junko's murder, but was later imprisoned again for assault. Even Hiroshi Miyano, who received a longer sentence, ended up back in jail for financial fraud tied to organized crime.
These instances really highlight the far-reaching consequences of violent crime. We tend to think about, the act itself, but it extends far beyond that. It creates this ripple effect that impacts individuals, families, communities for years to come. The potential for reoffending, the enduring trauma of the victims and their families, the erosion of public trust in the justice system. These are all significant factors that demand our attention.
And then there's the case of Nobuharu Minato. His subsequent actions are perhaps the most difficult to comprehend. He was convicted of attempted murder.
I remember.
After a brutal attack in which he slashed a man's throat. It forces us to confront this disturbing truth. Some individuals, despite their interactions with the justice system, may still pose a threat to society.
Minato's case is particularly challenging because it raises questions about, those limits of rehabilitation. While second chances are a cornerstone of many justice systems, there are instances where the risk of reoffending is simply too great to ignore. Public safety must be a priority. That doesn't mean, abandoning the idea of rehabilitation altogether, but acknowledging that it's not always effective and that certain individuals may require long-term monitoring, perhaps even permanent incapacitation to prevent future harm.
It's a sobering realization.
It is.
And one that likely offers little solace to Junko's family. Their decision to move away, to maintain their silence.
It speaks volumes about the depth of their grief and their inability to find peace in a system that failed to protect their daughter and hold her killers fully accountable.
Their silence serves as a poignant reminder that justice extends beyond legal procedures and pronouncements. It's about providing support and avenues for healing to victims and their families, and cultivating a society where such horrific acts are less likely to occur in the first place.
Absolutely.
So after exploring this incredibly difficult case, where do we go from here?
That's the question, isn't it?
What can we learn from Junko Furuta's tragic story?
Her case serves as a powerful call to action, a reminder that complacency just isn't an option. We have to constantly evaluate, refine our justice systems, ensuring they're equipped to navigate the complexities of human behavior, balance those delicate scales of rehabilitation and public safety, and provide genuine support for victims and their families.
It's also a reminder that we all have a role to play as individuals and as a society. We must be vigilant in our communities.
Yes.
Raise our voices against injustice and support organizations working tirelessly to advocate for victims' rights and prevent violence.
And perhaps most importantly, we must never forget Junko Furuta.
Yeah.
Her story, as painful as it is to recount, has to serve as a beacon, reminding us of the darkness that can reside within humanity and urging us to work towards a world where such tragedies are less likely to occur.
This deep dive has been an emotional journey.
It has.
A difficult but necessary exploration of a case that continues to raise profound questions about justice, rehabilitation, and the enduring impact of violence.
Absolutely.
We encourage you to delve deeper into Junko's story, reflect on your own perspectives on these complex issues, and consider what actions you can take to make a difference.
Absolutely.
Remember, even small acts of kindness, awareness, and advocacy can create ripples of change that extend far beyond ourselves.
Thank you for joining us on this very difficult journey.
Yeah.
We hope that this deep dive has offered some new insights, fostered some meaningful dialogue, and hopefully inspired you to be a catalyst for positive change in the world.